Welcome to A New View this week. We are Restored Ministries and we have a great guest today. We can't wait to introduce and you get to know Charity Bradshaw.
I know.
I know. We have been visiting already, so we figured we have got to get in on this because Charity has some amazing books. And not only that, you can go to charitybradshaw.com and find out all that Charity does. But Charity, tell us a little bit how these books came about.
Absolutely. So one of my passions and my calling really is to help activate, propel, and support people who have a purpose, have a dream. And it doesn't matter if it's ministry driven, if it's business driven, whatever it is, I feel like there are latent potential diamonds, inside of us that need to be mined out and then stewarded. And so one of the things that I did when I was writing my books was I was like, what are the top 3 excuses or reasons, but I still have to call them excuses, that people give for not stepping into their purpose. And so literally these 3 books were birthed in about 9 months. Written, published, all that kind of stuff. And it was like, literally it was like birthing triplets.
Right.
But it's like they all have to come out right now.
But let's tell them a little backstory too, because I was very impressed that you did all of this with 4 children.
Yes.
So, 4 children.
Yeah.
And they're all young.
Yeah, at the time, my youngest was 2 when I started, about 2 years old. But I was also, this is not a brag, but I was homeschooling because we had just moved to Texas from Nashville. And my husband was a nurse working nights. And so literally it was like all on like Donkey Kong at my house. And I told my kids, I need you to partner with me. And that means give me some time, give me some space, be quiet for a little bit, go outside. And with homeschooling, we had that flexibility of just whatever. But then they eventually did start school. But literally it just felt like labor. And my husband's like, this is not a contest. There's not a prize for just cranking out books. I was like, I know, I will stop after this one, but I just have to get these out.
Right. And when he really gives you a story and he gives you something, I know, because actually you helped me I've had a lot of different people that kind of helped me, and I knew I had a story inside of me. And I love, you have a little tagline, I know it says that no longer carry the burden of an untold story, because it really does feel like a burden when you're carrying that story. And so I did a lot of the different workshops, Edie Bears, I talked to Courtney, but you, and really listening to you, had a webinar, I think, that we did, but just saying, like, how do I do it? And then I had a friend that said, but to chair. And she had 2 little kids, and I was like, okay, Charity's read this book, she has 4 kids. My friend had 2, and just really doing it. But when you have that burden of an untold story, it doesn't leave you, and you just have to crank them out.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, too, like you had said, was it's literally just, people are like, how did you find the time to do that? I was like, I never found the time.
Right.
I made the time.
Right.
And sometimes it means saying no to perfectly good things so you can say yes to the great thing.
Yes, I love that in your quote too.
When did you know that it was your passion to help people? When did you feel that rise up in you or just be a part of who you are?
My personality profile, according to all those tests, I'm a person, I'm a reformer. I love to leave things better than I found them. So this has been my life for a long time. It just didn't have a name. It didn't have a brand for a long time. So I was doing hair, I was doing all kinds of, I was teaching at my church, because my goal was people would come to me with some sort of pain. Right. And I'm like, how can I help you practically figure out how to get out of this pain? They'd come to me for life coaching. And I didn't even know it was life coaching, because that wasn't even a thing a few years ago, coaching. Now it's like a huge thing. Yeah. And so I was realizing, looking back, I was giving away life coaching for years, just helping people figure things out. And I know that one of my giftings is wisdom, and that's only not because I'm super smart, but because I'm a person that will learn from other people's mistakes. Yeah. I will learn from what you teach me. I'm not going to have to learn the hard way. And so I've told people, I'm like, look, if you really want to know some of the things that I've seen and experienced, I'll tell you, but don't waste my time, But this has been, for probably over 10 years, and really just in the last 5 has it been manifesting in this way of being more of a career type thing.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's really good. And so tell us a little bit about like each book, how they kind of birthed. You kind of told us a little bit before the show, but tell us a little bit what each of your books
how they work together.
How they work together.
So the top 3 excuses, and let me just tell you this. I'm gonna grab them here so I can show them to you. So one of the things and this was my first book, because this one is the one that really has my heart in it, and it's ultimate stewardship, because we have a lot of things. But if somebody tells me they are too busy to do their dream or to work on their dream, then this is the first book that I suggest. It's called Me, Myself, and Why. And what this book does is it helps you filter and get how you spend your time into alignment with your dream, with your purpose. There are plenty of things that we say yes to that take us away from our dream and take us away from our purpose. And so I'm really big on editing how we spend our time to truly accomplish what God has asked us to accomplish. This is time. If you say you're too busy, or if you don't know where the time is to do your dream, Me, Myself, and Why.
And we talk a lot about, using your best yes, because, your best yes is really important, because you're going to have to say no to some of those goods, like you said, to get to the great. I really liked too, like you were talking about, and I'm not sure if it's from that book, but you have a quote online, because I do follow Charity online. I want y'all to go follow her, because she has a lot of nugget drops on there, and we reshare them on Restored Ministries or Poetically Prophetic from time to time. But you had something that you were saying that the process of getting into alignment, it was, choosing the situations. You were evaluating not only your activities, but you were evaluating your relationships and finding out, how can I be the best version of myself? So is that?
Yes, and this is about values. And This is about, if I value having the most energy for my husband when he comes home and for my kids when they come home, it must mean that I have to manage my energy. And there are times, yes, when God calls us to do big things that require beyond ourselves, and I'm all about that. But I know that there are people who suck the energy out of me.
Oh, yes.
And I have got to be aware of how much time I give them, because truly that is my life's currency, is time.
Right.
That is the ultimate currency that equalizes us all, is the same 24 hours a day. And there are people who will just keep pulling and keep drawing and leave you nowhere but low when they leave. And I say, bless you, sister, or bless you, brother. I got somewhere to be. And that's really to just recharge myself.
Yeah. And setting those boundaries.
Yes.
We're worthy of those boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's teaching us that. And so.
Yes. Okay, so the next one, and this is one that I think a lot of us struggle with, because we kind of sit there and go, could it possibly be? We know all of our garbage. We know all of our backstory.
Right.
We know everything that we've ever done, and we love to keep using that against ourselves. We love to let that disqualify us from something possibly huge. And I have this to say to you, if that is you. I need you to read your Bible. If you are acquainted with who God uses, then you will have the ability to believe that God can use you. I mean, let's think about Paul.
Right.
This is a person who was murdering Christians.
Exactly.
And then after an encounter with God, all of a sudden his life has turned 180 degrees, and now he has to convince the people that he was killing. By the way, I'm on your side.
Right, exactly.
I mean, what an influencer.
I was just kidding.
So amazing,
That's right.
And so he could have said, I can't possibly be who God would choose, because I have done so much against his kingdom and against his people. But really, he was like, God's grace is what is enabling me to overcome my past. And so if you're a person that says, could God use me? Does he know what I've done? Does he know who I am? Am I significant? Am I invisible? Then this is the book for you. This is called She Leads. And this is a compilation of about 30 women, ordinary women who were broken, who had low education, who had high education, who were rich, who were poor, who were physically capable, who were disabled, of every different ethnicity that I could find, who decided to get over the fact that they were ordinary and become extraordinary simply through doing the thing that God asked them to do. So that's She Leads.
And that's great, because a lot of times people will not allow that pain to fuel their purpose. And I know for my purpose in Restored Ministries and things, I had some heavy pain is what fueled that ministry initially. And I couldn't stay one day carrying that secret, carrying that burden, because it doesn't help anybody. So I love that you compile these inspirational stories, because that's really when we share our stories, that's when we repair our stories. That's when we help others repair their stories. That's when we help them to really come alongside, hey, yeah, me too. Brene Brown, we always say that quote, but she has that great quote that says, you'll impress people all day long when you tell them your strengths, but you'll never genuinely connect unless you get vulnerable and you bear your weaknesses with one another.
One of the things that I found too is the more that we, like, I don't want to say own our weaknesses, but the more that we are unashamed, you know, I think the enemy wants to keep us in shame, and that keeps everything in secrets.
Right.
You know, but as we remove the power that the enemy has over us by removing the shame and by sharing those nitty-gritty things that, you know, we think, oh, well, that could ruin their impression of us. Well, good. We don't need them to be impressed with us. We need them to be impressed with what God has done to us, through us, in us, and around us. And so by sharing how far we've come, I love when people share their stories, because I do believe that as you go back and filter and think about what God has brought you through, I believe it allows us to reorganize how we remember a lot of those things and say, thank God He has brought me from to.
Yes, exactly. Because when we're stuck in that shame, we don't see those things at all. And so I love that. And I love that when we hear someone's story, it should inspire us. It shouldn't make us feel, oh, listen, it should inspire us to say, I can do that too.
Yes. That is one of my huge, but one of my biggest things is when anybody meets me, yes, I'm exciting, I'm charismatic and all those kind of things, but the biggest thing that I would want anybody to walk away from after being in my presence, and even all of us, is the idea or the feeling that you can do this too. Yes. You can do this too. Yeah. The reason I talk about the fact that I got 4 kids is because if you're a person that you've got 4 kids and you think that that's the reason why you can't, I want you to know that somebody else with 4 kids has done it too. Right. Somebody else who has had to work their whole life to do things differently than they saw, you can do it too. Yeah. You can be the first one. You can begin the legacy for your family.
That's good stuff.
Well, you already left us with that feeling. So you really have. I mean, Kim and I both were like, amazing. And I have a question for you too, and you kind of are touching on it anyway, but as you went through your research with this book, you talked about, I think there's 30 historical figures, and
some are younger than me.
Yeah.
Some are younger than me in the book.
So it had to have completely had such a great influence on you as well, as you were writing it, huh? Do you come across women who talk about not so much feeling like they're not okay with sharing their story, but seeing the value in it, like wondering, well, so many people have already told that story, or I've come from a place asking that, because if you're someone like me, for instance, I love to read books, and so you hear and you kind of dive into other people's stories and what they've learned, and they've got this to talk about and teach, that you at some point ask yourself, well, but does what I really need to say have value? What is that? Like, and how do you address that?
Well, simply put, that is feeling insignificant.
Yeah, and I think that's the devil's work.
Yeah,
I really do. I think a lot of women, especially women, get trapped in that.
One of the fun that this kind of perfectly segues into my 3rd book. So when I originally wrote this book, I was living in Nashville. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dave Ramsey, but Dave Ramsey lives in Nashville. Like, I would run into him at Costco.
Oh, okay.
And why I say that is because, you know, in my mind, I mean, my husband and I took his financial peace course at the beginning of our marriage, like nearly 16 years ago. We took his course. Love it and think it's great, you know. And I was like, I've taught a money class at my church, and we didn't have 13 weeks, you know, at that time it was 13 weeks long. And our church was like, well, can you help people with money? But it needs to be like 6 weeks long. It needs to be about 45 minutes. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're talking about boiling down this huge concept. Yeah. And so over time, I was like, I saw what people needed, and I saw how they just needed to be able to catch a breath. And so I know that Dave teaches on all this stuff, and I love his teachings. And my mom was like, you need to write the way you're teaching, write this money-wise. And I was like, Mom, it's already been written. Dave's book is amazing. He lives in my city. Who am I to write a book on money when he's right here? He has a plaza. I mean, a whole huge plaza. And I mean, I've got friends that are going through his courses, and I'm just going, who would I be to write a little book on money? Who would read my book? And I'm telling you, I get testimonies of people who are in houses now because of my book helping them. And I mean, to you, I would say, would you want to not let somebody know what God has done for you? We're called to give our testimony. Really We're called to share. It's not our job to save anybody. We're just called to share what God has done in our lives. And I'm thankful that my mom pressed me over the hump of insignificance and over the hump of who am I to write this book. into the land of, I did write it and it is helping people.
Exactly. And some of y'all may not know Charity's mom. Some people watching here may not know,
But she could be anybody's
but she
mom.
could
You know
be
what I'm saying?
anybody's
She's a
mom, and she's many people's mom, because
Yeah.
I told her Joan Hunter is Charity's mom, and I was ordained through Joan Hunter, and that's when I first heard you speak back in 2013, 14 on MoneyWise, and I'd done the Dave Ramsey, and I thought, oh wow, this is really great. This is really great information that she's sharing, but you shared it so uniquely you, and that's really, I think, how we glean from everybody's story and everybody's experience, because then that helps us find our lane and helps us find, and the way we share it with somebody is going to be uniquely, it will touch them, because not everybody, we could be saying the same thing and it doesn't connect with that person, but I mean, your mom, Joan Hunter, already, you know, amazing ministry, amazing woman, but all of you and your sisters have all kind of found your own lane.
Yes.
So that tells you the amazing character of your mom, that she was like, you know, telling, you know, you could do whatever you want in your lane. You didn't have to map your lives after what, you know, the amazing ministry she has, but find your own lane.
And the cool thing is too, this is for you, I believe too, and for somebody probably out there as well, is that nobody has your voice.
Right.
Nobody has your perspective. And one of the things with the money thing that I kind of help people understand is some people like P90X, some people like Jane Fonda. You know, there are
funny.
different strokes and different speeds and different temperaments for different people. And I think it's just about finding who you align with, and know that there's a tribe out there for you that needs your personality, your bend, your focus, your value, and just your humor, your personality. I mean, Dave Ramsey loves to talk about speedboats and cars, and I'm like, that is not my zone at all. Talking about like maybe vacations or somebody to come help me clean my house, then he's got my attention. But I don't need a boat, you know. So it's about just finding who you connect with, and books are a great way to share that personality and to share who you are, and those are the ways that you connect with people.
That's really good. That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
I've had like things popping into my head at different moments through this whole thing, and I'm like, but I've been taking notes.
I know, me too. Like, we're learning.
I've already been helped.
Oh, good.
Yes, me too, for sure.
And so tell us a little bit about, because I know that you wear many hats. I mean, not only you're an author, but you're a speaker. You also do branding, and then you have LifeWise, which is your book publishing company, so that you help people to publish their books.
Even before that, I've got launch author coaching, and this is one of my favorite things that I help people do, is that there are people walking around 13 months pregnant with a story they should have told 5 years ago, and it's uncomfortable now. And now it's like awkward, and you're waddling with this, like, I've got to get it out, but I don't know how, and I'm scared, and all those kinds of things. And God put it on my heart. I had so many conversations.
That's your webinar things. Yeah,
yes,
that's amazing. Y'all need to do that.
So I would run into people saying, oh, I've got a book that I'm going to write. And then year after year it's the same, I've got a book that I'm going to write. And I'm like, will you just write it? Will you just please write it and stop talking about it? And so I looked at all the areas that people needed support in, and I was like, I'm going to create a program that doesn't just tell you how to write a book, but then we do the accountability, because who in here understands the value of a personal trainer? I do. It's that accountability, it's that encouragement, it's that drawing on what is inside. And so that's what the course does, is it helps you get the idea out of your head, out of your body, onto the paper in 90 days or less. And then from there, it's what to do. We talk about the next steps of publishing. I have a company, but I'm not the only company that publishes, but I love helping my authors go all the way through publishing as well. Because it's just huge. It literally is like, you can be like, my baby, it's so clean, look at it, I love it. And you're just like, these words will be here after I'm gone. My kids will have my words. I mean, they were my first audience when I was writing my books, is I just was like, if something were to ever happen to me, I want my kids to have my heart. I want them to know what their mom valued and what they saw in them, and how she lived her life, so they would always have those. And now I'm like, well, my grandkids will have that, you know? And so that's one thing too, if you're out there and you're like, I've got this message, or I have this story that I want even just your children to know, start with them. Let them be your audience, and then watch God multiply who your story can help.
Exactly. And my kids are funny because Kim is my editor and really helped me. I mean, I took your webinar and different things, and I was one of those people that had the stories inside of me, and it was just like, where do I start with? I thought this is the one I was going to start with, and then it just wouldn't go, and then I would get halfway through this one. I'm like, why is it not connecting? And then we had a conversation. She's like, I think you need to do this. And I'm like, really? And then when we really were accountable to each other and said, okay, we're going to set this time, we're going to do this. We finished 8 books last year.
Wow.
8 books. And then
High five.
and the work, our goal is 3 this year. And yesterday I sent her the rough draft, and she gave me a goal of another one by May, and I'm like, ooh, girl.
Sit down.
But really, that is something, and when I was sharing it with my kids, and we did it more like in the prayer script series, we chose to all of a sudden make it fun and go out to Facebook and social media and say, send us or tag us in these color pictures. So we did color pictures for each one is 31 days of the verse in the first person and a prayer. But my kids were having fun saying, hey mom, you remember this picture from vacation? Hey, oh, that's a good one. Or my daughter took one of a butter, or different things. But it was interesting, in that prayer script series, people would say, oh, you used my photo and you did the perfect prayer and verse for me, but we didn't line those up. It was random because we had so many people sending us pictures. We would just have to put the pictures in the file, and then we would just randomly throw them in each book.
Like you said, it's exponential who it touches.
And it just, And so what my sister and my kids were like, even non-readers will read this, because my kids are not readers, and I'm like, y'all must be after daddy because I'm such a reader. I'm like, what do you mean you don't like to read? I mean, I have to force them to read, but they read the books, and they're all like, even people that don't read will love these. But my sister has been buying like sets of them, and then she gave them to her office as gifts, and then makes them change them around because they're different topics. But also, like, she likes to go and bless strangers with them, and just say, hey, this and that. And so that's kind of cool. So you don't know who you're touching.
This morning, this is something that's so cool. So this morning, I got a notification that there was a royalty payments from Amazon or whatever, from Amazon Australia. I have never been to Australia. And I say that because the messages that I have are able to travel across the globe, places I may or may not ever go. I'd love to go to Australia, by the way, if you're in Australia. Bring me out there. But, like, I get royalties from Japan. I've never been to Japan. I don't know if I can handle the food. Like, fishes that look back at you, things like that. But, I'm thankful that now technology has made it so accessible and so possible for us to be God's messengers. And I tell my books, I'm like, you're a little ambassador, go and do what you're supposed to do. You're a little missionary, go and travel and do your job, do your job. And so I send them out, and I love that. I love that people don't have to wait for me to be awake. They can order my books in their sleep. I love that.
I do love that little email from Amazon when it says that. You're like, somebody ordered my books. Somebody ordered my books. I love that. Or through our website, sometimes we run specials. So that is an awesome feeling. But I love how you said these are our ambassadors and getting it out. And that's kind of how Kim and I used to just kind of walk, and we were talking, and I would tell her, I did these prayer scripts for people when my friend had a website years ago, when websites weren't even the big deal. And I would take verses, and I would, put them in the first person for whatever I was dealing with, and people would say, hey, can you get me one for this, or get me one for that, or I'm struggling with this, and then a lot of times when people contact me for prayer, I would do that, and so I already did that, and so it was natural for me, and then it was just took a little bit of planning and organizing.
The work that you
but now it's like that word goes out. And it goes out to people, and he was the word, and the word is powerful. But I love that people will say, I never saw it this way, or knew that was a Bible verse or things. And I love the beauty of multiple translations too, because they each speak a little different thing, but it reaches people.
Yeah, what I love, and I hear this from both of you, and it makes me think too of Joyce Meyer. She talks about this, that the Holy Spirit takes your words and your book and your books, and he goes and does even more with it. He's getting it into Australia, and how your sister hands it out to people. Like, that is so amazing. And it touches so many people. Think of all the people that you're saying that it touches. And so you write it, and then you don't have the stress of, well, is it going to sell? Or who's going to read this?
Right.
You've just done the work, and now the Holy Spirit can pick it up and do the rest.
And one of the things too is, and even my coaching clients that I help through the writing process, I tell them, I was like, this is a divine partnership. He is the author and finisher.
Oh, yes.
And we get to hold the pen, and I think that process is so cool. And I'll tell you one thing, this is going to sound crazy, but sometimes I'll go back and I'll read through these books. I'm like, did I write that?
Oh, I do the same thing. I'm like,
I don't remember, and you're like, thank God for editors, number one. But number two, I'm just like, wow, like, thank you for God for partnering with me, for writing through me, for saying things that years later minister back to me and inspire me. Like, and I don't mean that in a way of like, oh, I'm so inspiring. I'm like, I think it's just it's such a renewable resource.
Exactly.
It renews you, and it changes, and it takes on different meanings at different stages that we're in life. Is that the same story can hit you a different way? It's like, that's what the Bible, I love the Bible, it just feels alive.
Yes.
Because you can read the same verse 5 years later and be like, oh my gosh, I never read it that way, or I never saw it that way.
So I'm thinking about people watching this and thinking, okay, I would have to be writing something ministry related, something factual, something that happened in my life, but it very much can be any story.
You can tell, like, what I try to say is, if you're looking for your topic, and this is on that webinar, you can talk about your story. Maybe like what God has brought you through. Maybe you've got something fiction that you want to like write and just give people a sense of enjoyment or a sense of adventure. There's also your area of genius. And you're like, what? I'm a genius? But I believe that God has given us each skill set that to us seem like no big deal.
Right.
But to the other person who doesn't have that skill set, like, you know, people who are gifted in organization. And you're just like, how did you, could you tell me? And you're like, oh, and to them it's like no big deal, but to us we're like, oh my gosh, your whole pantry is alphabetized. How did you do that? Or whatever it is. But each of us has something. And so whether maybe you're a coach, or maybe you have a bubbling ministry inside of you, or I call it a business tree, where it's like a business, but you use it as your ministry. Maybe there's something inside that's needing to be cultivated, and you have this topic that you're just so passionate about. Share your passion. Share your passion point. Communicate with people where you're coming from and connect with them through your book. It's a great way to not have to say the whole story over and over again, to say, hey, it's all in my book, and I'd love to give it to you, or I'd love for you to buy it and invest in it. It's okay for them to invest in your book.
And it could be anything. Yeah. Because I know your daughter wrote a book, and it was a fictional, kind of, and so it doesn't have to be anything. And I tell, too, I have a lot of people that blog for me, too, is they can take those blogs. That's an easy way to put it into a devotional. Repurpose. That's a great way to put it into a little devotional, and I know we're working on some of those. Time Hop, Wendy Walters talked about her and her daughter took like their little inspiring couple of years ago post and things. Well, I love the feature of Time Hop because I'm like, oh, I wrote that. Save it. Already I'm halfway through, a book I'm working on this year and things. So I really love that. But I really love that you are like a cheerleader, but you encourage people, but you do it in a unique way. A unique way that just really says, like you said, not letting the excuses hold us back, but you're not so rigid. You're just like, hey, I've been there, I've done this, I want to see you succeed. And I think that's what, I'm a natural born encourager, and I love that, and I think you are too. And I love that because not everybody is. Not everybody is gifted so that way. Not everybody's gifted that way. But I love to see other people win. I love to see other people. It's kind of like when you have a really great place you like to eat or something like that. You're like, this is amazing. Try this. Yeah. But I like to do that with people and say, oh my gosh, these books are amazing. I listened to this when I got ordained. Or hey, have you done her webinar? Have you done this or that? And that's what I really do is I like to build people up and say, hey, this person is amazing. This person may help you. This person may help, fuel those dreams that you're wanting to dream.
And I'll tell you this. I would bet that what you want is on the other side of that excuse. And maybe you've been laying out this excuse because you're just not sure. But I'm telling you, there is something amazing about laying that excuse down, laying the fear that that excuse hides, and going for it and doing it, okay? You're already living the worst case scenario of it not being real. You're already living that. So why not lay down the excuse? Why not try? Why not give it the resource it needs? Why not give it the time, the money, the investment, the belief that it needs? I encourage you today to just take the leap, take the step of faith, give it the first yes that it needs.
That's really good. That's good. Because fear is one, I struggled with fear, and then it was kind of ironic that my very first book that we bought was Your Prescription for Fear. But I had walked through that and said, I don't want fear to hinder me one moment more. Fear is just, I think Joyce also says, false evidence appearing real. It's not, but fear is what's keeping a lot of us from walking out our destiny, walking out our purposes, from doing what we need to do. And things, but I really love that, that, like you said, I think there was something you just said, something about on the other side of that excuse,
That's what you actually want.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about losing weight, we talk about, because we want what's on the other side of that, being healthier, feeling less pain, fitting into smaller clothes, wearing a belt. There's some things to be excited about. It's like, it's one of those things, just, it's right there. You probably could name the thing that you want, and then just look at the excuses that you've been putting out. Right. I think we all have things, and we all grow, and there's different stages for us to address, these things. God's not saying, I want you to address every problem area of your life right now today, but he's saying, how about the first one? How about the one that could really impact all of them? Start with that one, even if it's the biggest. My husband, a few years ago, he was 36 years old, working in a warehouse, going nowhere, and he'd got passed by for every promotion. He's a brilliant man, a loyal worker. I would hire him if he had my skill set that I needed. But I was like, maybe this isn't the end all be all for you. Maybe there's something else for you. And God dropped it in his heart that he wanted to become a nurse. Well, the thing is, he couldn't go and apply to be a nurse the next day. Right. He had to go to 4.5 years of full-time school to say, I want to apply for this nursing position. Right. And a lot of us, we see this thing and it's so big, and the journey from here to there is so big, but you know what? It's just steps away. Right. It's just the next right step, the next right step, the next right step. And don't worry about how far it is to the end of the goal or the top of the mountain. Just take the next step, and then the next one. Do it.
That's good. That's really good. And speaking about your husband too, I want to let them know you and your husband are working on some marriage stuff. I'm excited about that.
Yes, we are about 80% done with the writing. And it's one thing to write a book by yourself. It's another thing to write a book with another person. So sometimes things take a little bit longer when you're collaborating and just getting our schedules, aligned in that way. But we're very close to being done with the writing process. And then we've got, I'm so excited because we have a male and a female editor who are going to help us out. Both happily married, both in love with Jesus. And I'm very excited for the input and the collaboration that they're going to give us on the book as well. But our heart is not to position ourselves as experts, but as people willing to just talk about the things that go on behind the door, in the bedroom, in the closet, all those things, just helping people who desire to have a marriage that not only lasts, but is exciting and is fun and is worth working for. That's great. Coming out this year.
I saw the little teaser, the little interview kind of y'all did, and I said, that's going to be good. That's going to be really good. Well, we hope that you have enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about Charity Bradshaw. You can go to charitybradshaw.com and find out all the amazing things she does. Be sure and go to Amazon and pick up charitybradshaw.com, and you can pick up her amazing books. We hope that you've enjoyed it. We hope that you will get involved in fueling your dream. In doing what you need to do, just that right next step to put you in the path of making it a reality instead of just a dream. So we hope that you've enjoyed it. We hope that you will continue to share a new view with your friends and family. Take care.